You can start recording.
Okay, we're recording.
I bet you're glad to see I changed my name to Mike and not Cindy. My goodness. I was just looking at your name. My wife's maiden name was Mahar.
Oh,
Nobody pronounced that right either.
All right, I have 7 o'clock. I'll call this town meeting to order. Would you please all join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will now call for nominations for moderator. Is there a second? Do I hear any other nominations? Do I hear any other nominations? Do I hear any other nominations? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion to close nominations? Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All those in favor of Kevin Dombrowski to be the moderator for this town meeting, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? So moved. At this point, I will ask the town clerk to read the call of the town meeting.
All persons entitled to vote at town meetings of the town of Ledyard, Connecticut are hereby warned the annual town meeting for the consideration of the budget will be held in a hybrid format on the 16th day of May, 2022 at 7:00 p.m. Please join the annual town meeting in person or remotely from your computer, tablet, or smartphone as follows. In-person attendance will be at Ledyard High School Auditorium, 24 Gallup Hill Road, Ledyard, Connecticut. Remote attendance via Zoom video conference or by audio. The annual town meeting is for the following purposes. Number 1, to consider and act upon a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget as proposed and recommended by the town council at the annual budget meeting. Number 2, pursuant to Article 7, Section 6 of the town charter, to adjourn said town meeting at its conclusion and to submit the question presented below to an in-person vote upon the voting machines between the hours of 6:00 a.m. and 8:00 p.m. on the 17th day of May, 2022 under the following heading. Shall the town of Ledyard adopt a fiscal year 2022-2023 budget as proposed by the town council in the amount of $63,510,221? Voters approving said resolution will vote yes, and those opposing said resolution will vote no. Number 3, to transact other business which shall properly come before said meeting. Should the referendum fail, the adjourned town meeting will be reconvened on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022 from 12:00 p.m. to 8:00 p.m. on the voting machines in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 6 of the town charter. Should the second referendum not approve a budget, the town council shall adopt a final budget by the 4th Monday in June in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 6 of the town charter. Electors will vote in person at the following polling location. District 1, Town Hall Annex Building. District 2, Town Hall Annex Building. District 3, Town Hall Annex Building. Persons qualified to vote in town meetings who are not electors shall vote in person at Town Hall Annex Building with District 1. Absentee ballots will be available pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 9-396C and Executive Order 10E. Eligible persons requesting an absentee ballot must apply in person at the town clerk's office. Central counting of absentee ballots will be conducted at Town Hall Annex. Copies of the entire proposed fiscal year 2022-2023 budget are available in the town clerk's office, Ledger Town Hall, and on the town's website. Published May 6, 2022.
I will now ask for someone to make a motion for the budget.
The motion is, shall the town of Ledyard adopt a fiscal year 2022-2023 budget as proposed by the town council in the amount of $63,510,221, general government $28,954,902, Board of Education budget $34,555,319.
Okay, motion's been made. Do I have a second? Second, motion been made and seconded. We'll now have presentation of the budget. Town Council William Thomas will do the general government budget, and Anthony Favory, the Board of Education Chair, will do the Board of Ed budget.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I'm Bill Soms, and thank you, Chairman Dabrowski. And thank you, residents, for coming out tonight to hear tonight's town meeting and presentation. Let me play with a few buttons here. Here we go. So a little overview. The process for the budget began for the Board of Ed way back in the fall. For the town side, it began in January. Actually, it starts in December. When the town presented it, or when the mayor put his budget together with the help of the department heads, the Town Council Finance Committee and a number of other councilors attended 3 budget work sessions, March 10, 14, and 17th, where we asked line by line questions about each department's budget, meeting with each of the department heads. The Finance Committee went through the answers. They got to their questions, approved a recommended budget April 7th. Town Council approved it April 13th, and it went to the public hearing on April 25th. We had some new information, which was presented at that hearing. We also had one comment from the public. So the Finance Committee met again on April 26th, followed by a meeting with the Town Council where we approved the final budget for presentation to the public. So here we are on May 16th at the town meeting, and tomorrow we vote. Something I wanted to share with you that the mayor shared with the Town Council Finance Committee at the budget meetings. One, a couple updates on, or just overview things on the budget itself. He said that the grand list this year increased 3.15%. That's always good because it means more revenue for the town. And that also means that the real estate property values increased. Debt service increased by $379,000 as a result of the issuance of bonds for school roofs, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and building management system. And he also shared that he went through some details from the last 9 years. In those 9 years, general government expenditures have increased by an average of 1.58% each year. Public safety, 3.2%, 3.02%. Employee benefits costs went up 1.74%. Education up 1.6%. Public works up 1.48%. The mayor's office itself a 0.25% increase. And again, that's each year. This is a sign to me of a very responsible town government, prudent, careful with dollars, and I can assure you a lot of work goes into the oversight of the process and also by the department heads to make that happen. Also, when I first became involved with town government a number of years ago, for pension funding was a huge, our liability was a huge problem for the town. If I recall, we were maybe 50%. What I recall is about 30% funded. So that meant we didn't have enough money set aside for employees who retired. The town has worked hard at that to catch up, and our pension assets are now funded at slightly more than our liabilities, which is great news for the residents and our employees, our retired employees. So as mentioned, the total budget is $63 million, made up of a general government budget of $28,928,902. That's an 8.26% increase. The council adjusted or actually reduced that budget amount slightly from the mayor's proposed. And I should say, I did say adjusted because we are concerned about inflation. And we did not make the cuts that we usually do, although it's pretty hard to make cuts with this mayor's budget. He's done a good job in the past few years in presenting very responsible budgets, and we've always struggled to find significant cuts to make. As I say, this year, we're concerned about inflation, and we didn't feel it would be responsible to make deeper cuts. The Board of Ed budget is unchanged. It's a 2.62% increase at $34,555,319. The proposed budget, I'm going to skip this part because I know the Chairman Anthony Faber is going to go over the highlights of the Board of Ed budget. So the total increase represents a 5.29% increase. The mill rate, as the council is proposing, is a 33.82, which is a 0.10 mil increase. And the details of the budget are available on the town website. I'm just noticing, because I knew these numbers were slightly wrong, I'm going to have to change this presentation. This has the date of April 25. And I think this is, bear with me. I think this is the public hearing budget. Yeah, it is. Yep. Yep. It's not significantly different. So, oh, it's lovely. Okay. Nothing worse than the spinning hour. We should put a laptop on the budget. Try the play on PDF. That's what. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, Roxanne's presenting. Yeah. What? Yeah, okay. Well, she was sharing it.
Okay, I can share it again. I just wasn't
Yeah, go
sure
ahead.
if that's what you wanted me.
Yeah, please.
Just let me know what slide you want me to go to.
Yeah, let's hit each one. I'll just pull up the new numbers. So page down, please. You're going the wrong direction. There we go. Okay, that is the same. That's the same. So you can go to the next one, Roxanne. Okay, so the budget is $63,510,221. General government is $28,954,902. That's a 8.76% increase. And we reduced, after we got new information, we reduced it by 40,000 instead of 66,000. Board of Ed budget 34,555,319, unchanged at 2.62% increase. So the total increase is 5.33%. So the mill rate is the same. We projected on April 13th and again approved at our April 27th meeting, a projection of a 0.10 mil increase. Next slide, please. So this shows you where the town gets its money. And the point to note here is the taxes are 67% of our total revenue. Being a residential town, that's the way it works. If we had more business, we would have even greater revenue from businesses. But either way, resident or property taxes make up most of the budget sources of income. The state is the next largest chunk, which is in blue. You see that at intergovernmental at 25%. Next slide, please. And education is 54% of the total budget. There are also some in-kind services that the town provides, so it's slightly more than that. But after that, general government is our next largest, followed by debt service. Next slide, please. So we made some changes to the capital plan to keep the mill rate as it was originally proposed. We basically adjusted what we're spending on capital. So road restoration is the same at $950,000. We learned years ago that cutting on road restoration ends up costing the taxpayers more in the long run. What we did was take more money from grants and less from the tax levy to maintain the same level at the road restoration. Everything else stayed the same on this page. Notably, Ledyard Center sewers, we're investing $1.2 million of ARPA funding. That's the American Rescue Plan Act. We have a total of $4.3 million from the federal government, and part of that is going to sewer for Ledyard Center. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview of major capital projects in town. You've probably noticed we're going on in the Ledyard Town Green. A lot of it has been complete. We have a few new things still underway. One is a parklet. You may have noticed some picnic benches on the lower town green with new topsoil. I expect we'll be seeing grass there soon. And those are going to be great for the farmers market and other events. The pole barn is being renovated. It's getting a new skim coat on the roof. It got all new posts, mostly new posts. It got wiring, and much of the work has been completed by Public Works employees. There's also a multimodal trail going from Ledyard High School to Ledyard Center. We're still in the design and engineering phase, but we will see that coming beginning next year. The sewer line will also follow that same route. That's also in process, again, doing design and engineering. And we have now completed bonding for the Galesbury and Tully Long School roof replacement and solar projects, as well as on town building. So that was the library and the two town hall buildings have already gotten their roofs replaced. This is a view of the town green at the left of the slide. You'll see the upper town green. In the center is the smaller blue dot is the Holdridge Pavilion, just as a frame of reference, not dot, but rectangle. The larger blue rectangle is the pole barn and the parking spots. You see to the right of that, the new parklet or pocket park is at the lower right corner of the screen. And let's move on to the next slide, please. Here is what the parklet looked like back in late April. I think it's a little greener out there now. Let's go to the next slide. Pole barn, you can see some of the new posts. The original posts were just sunk in the ground, and that's why they had to be replaced. The posts don't like that. Let's go to the next slide, please. And here's the Bill Library roof, still under nearly complete. And I want to thank the Ledyard Beautification Committee for all their work all over town. Ledyard and Gales Ferry, both daffodils, they were beautiful this year. Next slide, please. This is Ledyard Town Hall, new roof. You can see in the back there that we've removed solar panels. Those may be replaced. We hope to, but we took the old ones off because we have to do that to put a new roof on. Next slide, please. So actually a lot on the American Rescue Plan Act. So we will receive $4.327 million. We received the funding in 2 tranches. The second one comes in this May and June. They must be obligated by the end of 2024 and spent by 2026. And there are several rules that govern what we can spend them on. And this Town Council Finance Committee and the Town Council themselves spent a lot of time looking at those rules and talking about what we could and should and also couldn't do. You'll see water and sewer infrastructure here. And that's a large part of where we invested the money. But you'll see more on that in a moment. Next slide, please. So here's where we think that we spent a lot of time on public health, assistance to various groups of people, all residents, and in some cases, people who were most impacted. But the big question always comes, why not just give the money back to the taxpayers? And that's one of the major rules of the ARPA funding. It can't be used just to reduce taxes. And had we chosen to do that, each resident would have received $288 one time. We feel that investment in economic infrastructure and town infrastructure will save the town residents and taxpayers much more money paying it back over the years to come. So the current plan supports all the above categories and invests in the community. And go back one more, I just missed that, Roxanne. And it generates a return on investment, as we were just saying. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm going to hit the high ones. The biggest one, as I just mentioned, is the sewer line extension. There are 2 more phases to that. We kept 1 phase in. We took 1 out because the original plan was to have developers help to pay for this sewer line. We also did what I think are some really nice things. We added funds to the housing rehab grant, $100,000. We gave money to TVCCA, which is the Thames Valley Council for Community Action, Lead Light Health District. And we did some small things too. By the way, these are all things that the town council approved, but our intention with this budget was to put as many things as we could in the budget itself, in the capital plan, so that residents could also weigh in. We also asked residents throughout the process and held a public hearing to gain residential input, or property owner input, which we got and we responded to, and we included some of those suggestions. So let's go to the next slide. So these are all the things that are in the capital plan, in the budget for you to vote on. Not every single thing, but most of these things are in the budget. We don't quite have enough money to do everything. For example, Sandy Hollow guardrails at $225,000, we did not recommend that the taxpayers vote for. But some of the other nice things I mentioned, funding for youth mental health clinicians, $190,000. Teen suicide and youth suicide is a huge issue, especially after COVID. And this council, I think, supported that need along with many other things. Police radio replacement, some repairs to some of our town facilities, and then some smaller things as well. Next slide, please. Another resident's suggestion, I don't see it here. Yep, there it is, electric vehicle charging stations in Gales Ferry. We thought that might help in economic development and also support people who purchase electric vehicles. Also a Gales Ferry corridor study, because we continue to want to improve the landscape in Gales Ferry. Next slide, please. This is the end of the list and the smallest items. Next slide, please. So the mill rate, revenue from non-tax sources increased 5.4%. And after the budget was approved for the town council to be presented at the public hearing, we received pretty bad news, a 2.5% increase in healthcare costs, which was an additional $158,000 we had to find. And we had authorized purchase in a previous year of a heavy truck, and the cost of that truck went up $50,000. It's just incredible what inflation is doing to us. So we covered those costs, as I mentioned, by adjusting what we do in the capital plan to get some grant money to do that. We met on April 27, reviewed those numbers, adjusted the plan, and we held the projected mill rate at 0.1 mil. The reason I say projected is we never know exactly what it's going to be, but it's always a pretty good estimate. Next slide, please. We will actually set the mill rate in June if this budget is approved. So I want to thank you all for listening to this presentation and attending, and I will turn it over to Chairman VIII. Thank you.
Roxanne, can you let me share the screen? Sorry.
All right. So now I have 3 monitors to look at, so we'll see how good I am. And I'm chewing gum too, by the way. All right. So, just to recap, I'll walk through just from a Board of Ed perspective, the process from a budget standpoint, just to piggyback Councilor Tom. So from the last meeting on the 25th, there was no change from a Board of Education perspective. On this slide here, really just again to reinforce strategic plan that the Board of Education adopted in 2017. This has really been the guiding principle for us. We operate as a district and as well for the Board of Ed for all of our prioritization work that we do from a budget perspective. As part of that strategic plan process, we adopted and developed a vision statement, our beliefs, theories of action, and priorities, which really cascade all the way down through the work that our entire district can do. When we think about the beliefs that really for us from a board perspective is the foundation and the pillars for what guides us from a budgetary perspective. Those beliefs really center around relationships, leadership, collaboration, credibility, achievement, innovation, and enrichment. When we think about our budget priorities, these 3 are consistent in what we've shared in prior budget years and really are the guiding principles for all the budget prioritization work that we do. First and foremost, it's the continued implementation and refinement of the focus priorities that have been adopted in our strategic plan. Maintain high quality programming across academics, arts, agri-science, and athletics. And then the continued implementation of our structural improvements. Again, this was part of our strategic plan initially implemented in 2017. When we think about our enrichment intervention, really that work began in 2018 with the enrichment block in our elementary levels, K through 5, and then continued with ELA and math intervention, 6 through 8. So we continue as a district to continue to roll out the strategies there. From a budget process perspective, Mr. Slom's hit upon that the board started the process in the fall time, and we always have the running joke that as soon as we get through the current year budget process now, we have about a month off, and then we start the process all over again. But really, there's a lot of it's a culmination of a lot of work between the superintendent, his leadership team, and the entire district staff, really building up to the point where then the sorry about that. We're just usually I'm really loud. Apologies for the listeners. So But by the time that the proposed budget is presented to the board, there's multiple levels of review and feedback that ultimately funnel through the superintendent. What you see ultimately here is just an overview of what the board seeks from the superintendent and his team. So beyond what is then proposed to the board, we want to have visibility into just the other items that were part of the consideration process. Green are obviously the items that are recommended into the budget from an inclusion perspective. And then you can see the yellow and red categories there, what ultimately falls out, but the board wants to have visibility into that process. From a Board of Education perspective, once the budget is presented to the board, it goes through multiple reviews through finance. We also host a public hearing to get additional feedback before ultimately finance adopts the budget and then presents it to the entire board for review and adoption. So at a high level, before we get into really the delta from a budgetary perspective, this provides you with an overview of the key changes for this year's budget. You'll see the first item, which is consistent to prior year's budgets, where we identify savings related to teacher retirements. The follow here is that these are not position eliminations. These are retirements. Those positions are then filled, but they're obviously filled at a lower step level. So there's some additional savings that we account for there. 30,000 for kindergarten boot camp, and then you'll see across multiple functional areas a total headcount of 5 FTEs. And then you'll see the allocation for increased foreign language, really from half FTE or full-time equivalent to a full-time FTE at the high school level, and then 22,000 for paraprofessional development. So at a high level, this provides the budget breakdown. As you can see, the biggest piece of the pie is from a board budget perspective, is really tied to salary and wages, which is roughly 3/4 of the budget. And those are mainly driven through contractual changes, or requirements. And then from a funding source perspective, similar view that Mr. Solms presented from the town side, but this is obviously exclusively focused on the Board of Education. You'll see that most of our budget is coming through town appropriations and then through the ECS, or educational cost sharing. That is roughly 90% of the funding sources from a Board of Ed perspective. And then we think about the salaries, just going back to the earlier slide, when you look at the total ask from a board, which is just over 800,000, 650,000 is really allocated towards teacher salaries. So that gives you a perspective of really what's driving the board's budget. So on this slide, this gives a breakdown of the estimated revenue, and we identify this as estimated revenue because ultimately the town, through their budget process, will project the revenue. We will provide the estimation as part of our budget process. When you look at the upper part there, the first line is specific to our impact aid, and just a call out to the entire district team. When we started on this process, Ledger was receiving roughly about 440,000 for impact aid, and as you can see here on this line item, about 1.5 million is what is estimated and what we've been consistently receiving year over year. So about a 70% increase in that funding source. And then you'll see the breakdown between the agri-science operating and then educational cost sharing. From an ECS perspective, really, that has been flat from a funding perspective. And then at the bottom, we also identify tuition-based revenue. By and large part, the majority of the tuition-based revenue is coming through our agri-science program here at the high school. And then on this slide, this will give you a breakdown of the actual and forecast enrollment. So you'll see a slight increase in overall enrollment. A couple things just to point out here, and we don't have a slide in here, but in the budget information that we have posted on the Board of Ed website, we do also provide a breakdown of the per pupil cost, which is $15,739. And to give perspective, that puts Ledger at 160 of 165 from a ranking standpoint on a per pupil perspective. I call it out because as we continue to think more strategically as we move forward from a budgetary perspective, we have from a board as well as from a district perspective, really pulled all the different levers as we think about lean budget management. And as we go forward, we want to make sure that we're mindful in how we continue to invest in the education of this district. I won't spend time here. There's two slides that we include in our material that give enrollment numbers. So you can see left-hand side provides the actuals for this school year, and then what the projected is for next school year. So this slide is focused on the elementary level. Following slide goes into middle school and high school. The only call out here, beyond just the projections, the increased projections from an enrollment perspective, you'll see at the kindergarten levels where obviously we're expecting higher enrollment. You'll see that flow through the kindergarten levels, and then becomes a waterfall as those enrollment populations continue to progress through the various grade levels. So in total, and just to recap what Mr. Soms shared in the beginning, so the total budget from a board perspective that was approved for a budget was $34,555,319. That's an increase of $883,349, or a 2.62% increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soms and Mr. Fabry, for those presentations. At this point, I'll open the floor for public comment. Is there anybody in the room that would like to make a comment? Is there anybody on the Zoom who would like to make a comment? Please enter your name in the chat. I'll have one more call for public comment. And I would like to, Councilor Soms reminded me, the mayor sent his regrets. He was unable to attend tonight due to illness. Had a bad migraine. So, but he sends his regrets. Okay. Okay, the comment on Zoom is I missed a specific slide. What is the percentage of increase in teacher salaries for the new budget? Okay. So according to the, I'm not sure if you can hear that, Mr. Point, but looks like the comment I'm getting from the board is about 3%, but there was no specific slide that addressed salary increases. But based upon the contract negotiations, about 3%. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I will adjourn this town meeting to a referendum between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Electors will vote at the following polling places: District 1, Town Hall Annex Building; District 2, Town Hall Annex Building; District 3, Town Hall Annex Building. Persons qualified to vote in town meetings who are not elected shall vote at Town Hall Annex Building with District 1. Absentee ballots will be available from the town clerk's office pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 9 Tac 396C and Executive Order 10E. Eligible persons requesting an absentee ballot must apply in person at the town clerk's office. Central counting of absentee ballots will be conducted at the Town Hall Annex Building. Should the referendum fail, the adjourned town meeting will be reconvened on Tuesday, June 7th, 2022 from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the voting machines in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 6 of the town charter. In the event that both referenda fail to pass a budget, the town council is required to adopt the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget by June 27, 2022. At this point, I will close the town meeting to adjourn the town meeting to the polls. Thank you, everyone.